Hey, I want to do a quick follow-up to the video I did earlier today. I did a video about how the media was so reluctant to report that the shooter in Texas was stopped by an armed good guy, a good guy with a gun. A good guy with an AR-15, it turns out now. They just didn't want to admit that. If you read all the early stories, they're like, the gunman fled and then died of suicide. They had nothing in there about, being shot by a civilian. And then when they finally were forced to say he was confronted by a civilian, they didn't say he was shot. They were like, oh, he was confronted by another guy with a gun and dropped his gun and ran. They didn't want to say, a good guy stopped him. A good guy with a gun stopped him. That isn't a cop or, a specially trained person. So they didn't want to say it. They went out of their way to try to not say it. And then they came out later and said, okay, yeah, he was shot at by another guy. They exchanged fire. That was their next version. They exchanged fire and then he fled and killed himself. Then finally they admitted, after they'd been called several times on the fact that the evidence shows he was shot by the good guy with the gun, not just shot at, they finally said may have committed suicide after being shot by a guy with a gun. Well, now they're actually saying, well, he definitely committed suicide because there's a third gunshot wound to his head. In fact, CNN went as far as to say, breaking news, the autopsy report, but, there is no autopsy report yet. Just watched the sheriff say autopsy's not in yet 2 minutes ago on CNN. But these other places are reporting that, it wasn't really an autopsy. Now they're saying it was based on information at the scene when the police found him after the car he was in rolled to a stop. It didn't pull off the road and he shot himself. It rolled through an intersection and drifted off the road and rolled into a field. Which is funny that he killed himself, I guess, while he was still driving, because even that's funny because the guy who was in the truck with him didn't report that happened. The guy that was following him and the guy that actually shot him, neither of them reported hearing any gunshots during the chase, and they were very close. Didn't see any erratic behavior. Like if he would have shot himself, it'd have been more of a off the road kind of a thing, not just slowly drifting down and drifting off the road like they described. None of the evidence supports him shooting himself in the head while he was still driving. So this whole based on evidence at the scene, and it's funny that the guy that actually shot him says he shot him 3 times. If you read his report, and if you read the report from his cousin, who they actually interviewed on CNN, they haven't interviewed the actual shooter yet, live, but if you read it, they both say he shot him 3 times. And one of those times was in the back of the neck and head as he was in the Bronco, shooting backwards at them through the back window of the Bronco, or whatever kind of vehicle it was trying to get away, that he shot him in the back of the neck and the hip. So the autopsy's out, that's garbage for one, but it just surprises me how much people want to believe that. They want to believe that, it wasn't the good guy that killed him, it was him. It doesn't even matter. Even if after he got in that car and he immediately made a phone call to his dad as he was on the run saying, I'm dying. I've been shot and I'm not going to make it. Not I've shot myself and I'm not going to make it. I've been shot and I'm not going to make it. So even if he did shoot himself in the head after that to end his pain and his suffering, does not change the fact that a good guy with a gun stopped him cold and would eventually have killed him. He got shot in the ribs between his 2 plates. That's where the guy said he aimed and where he hit him. So he wasn't making it, period. And even if he did shoot himself in the head and shorten his demise, the time it took for him to pass, wouldn't have changed the fact that a good guy with a gun stopped him. But the media does not want to stress that part of it. And it's really sad that so many people out there want to accept this whole third shot as, one, as proof when there's no autopsy, and 2, why they would even think that matters. Why they would give, I guess the media was right because, yes, he finished himself off. No, that still wouldn't be right. So stop being freaking sheep when it comes to this stuff. Stand up and, act like intelligent people and do some research. Like the first person that sent me the information about, now it's proven he killed himself, that here's where it is, and you search for it and you go to the article they were saying was the proof. It wasn't even in the article. It was in the comment section. Someone had made the comment that he killed himself by shooting himself in the head. And then you go to another one, the Washington Post. There was no proof. You go to the CNN one, they backed off what they said originally, and are now saying it was based on reports at the scene when they originally said it was an autopsy. So don't believe any of this garbage. And even if it was true, they're desperately trying to make it sound like the good guy with a gun was not an important factor in this, and he was the only important factor in this as far as stopping this. And I did want to address one other thing where people are like, well, it's all these people are on psychotropic drugs. Well, no, not all of them. I don't think Timothy Vey was, and even if he was, a lot of people who shoot people, like gang members, etc., and do a lot of these mass shootings, they're not on psychotropic drugs. And also, these days, it's hard to find someone that isn't. So if you have to point someone and say, ha, they were on drugs, that's why they did this, well, you can't say that because the other 9,999 people that are on the same drug didn't do anything like that. So that's hardly evidence. So you're doing the same thing that people say, well, that guy with the AR, the reason he did it is because he's got an AR. Well, the other million people that have ARs didn't do that. The AR was not the factor. So we can't get into that trap of doing things like that without evidence to back it up, or we look just as bad as the anti-gunners. But other than that, that's the only thing I want to say. I want to do a follow-up, say a good guy with a gun ended this situation, period, and the media needs to report it that way. And also, don't go throwing stones until you got evidence to back it up.